The biggest reason for reading is to get rid of the mediocrity. One day earlier, one more wonderful life. One day later, one more mediocrity. The ideal book is the key to wisdom. Let us use this key of wisdom to open the door of wealth and luck. Share classic books and explore life philosophy. Take you to the ocean of knowledge and climb the peak of life. Hello, I am your friend, Sally. Drive is a subversion of the current traditional theory on human positivity. It is the latest book of trend expert and best-selling author Daniel Pink. In the book, the author explains in detail how to rejuvenate people's enthusiasm when rewards and punishments have failed. It is a subversion of the current traditional theory of human positivity. In the past, most of us followed the following behavior pattern. The boss promised us a salary increase, and our work was extraordinarily hard. We worked hard to get a good score, so we spent more time studying. Work on time. This book will tell you a surprising truth. What inspires you? Based on 40 years of research on human incentives, Daniel Pink revealed that external incentives such as carrot sticks are no longer the best way to motivate ourselves and others. It puts forward a subversive incentive theory, that is, the third driving force that really drives us, and points out the secret of how to improve performance and rejuvenate enthusiasm for everyone and every organization in the era of radish and stick failure. Author Daniel Pink, a well-known trend expert in the United States, is known as one of the 50 most influential business thinkers in the world, writer of the New York Times, Harvard Business Review, former U.S. Vice President Al Gore and White House executive writer. His 2009 speech The Secret of Human Motivation became one of the top 20 popular speeches on TED. In The Driving Force, he examines the three major elements of driving force: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. At the end of each chapter, a practical toolbox is also provided. Through a large number of real cases and scientific research results, the author Daniel Pink pointed out for everyone in every organization how to improve performance and enthusiasm in the era of the failure of the carrot stick: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. The driving force deeply analyzes the disadvantages of the traditional incentive method, what is the third driving force, and teaches you how to excite the third driving force from three aspects. 1. The author said that the reward and punishment policy of radish and stick has reduced the long-term enthusiasm required for people to continue this work. Why? 2. Wikipedia, which all volunteers help for free, can beat Microsoft Encyclopedia with funds, time, and team. What is the reason? 3. To stimulate the third driving force requires three core elements, namely, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. How to realize these three core elements? 4. Post-it notes that are readily available in the office are invented by 3M employees in 15% of their free time. What kind of environment can stimulate employees' autonomy? 5. Using if, then is far better than using since, then to stimulate the thinking mode, and it can more mobilize the inner enthusiasm. Why? In the book, Pink divided the driving forces of human enthusiasm into three types. The first driving force is the biological driving force. Humans and other animals eat to stop hunger, drink water to quench thirst, and mate to satisfy sexual desire. Almost all the elements of this driving are related to survival. The second driving force comes from extrinsic motivation, the reward or punishment that the environment brings when making certain actions. The third driving force comes from people's intrinsic motivation, which is our internal needs to lead our lives, learn and create new things, and do better through ourselves and our world. In the industrial age dominated by mechanical labor, Tyler as the representative first opened the so-called scientific management era dominated by the second driving force, and the second type of extrinsic motivation-driven incentives with carrot and stick as a typical model. The model has defined almost the entire 20th century: reward me, I will work harder, and has also achieved remarkable results. However, with the deeper development of human understanding and practice of incentive theory, especially in the post-industrial era, the industrial model in the context of the latest financial crisis, Pink uses its incentive theory to rely on the traditional economic model to drive, based on various. This kind of specific research case deeply analyzes and reflects on it, and then puts forward the emphasis on autonomy, mastery, and purpose as the core to emphasize the motivation model driven by human intrinsic motivation to upgrade and replace the traditional external emphasis on reward and punishment motivation-driven incentive mode, that is, upgrade the driving force 2.0 to the driving force 3.0. From the agricultural economy to the industrial age, human beings have entered the era of driving force 1.0 based on survival needs into the era of driving force 2.0 based on external motivation, and entered the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century. In the era of technology and globalized knowledge economy, the driving force model of human development has also become more mature with this process, starting from the economic man era based on external motives to the pursuit of autonomy, specialization, emphasis on mission and significance driving force 3.0 era. The large-scale machine production in the industrial era naturally determines that mechanical labor has become the most typical feature of this era, and this feature also determines that in this era, control is used as a management method, and obedience is the behavioral goal. Great driving force management model. However, since the 1970s, the model of emphasizing control and external incentives has faced more and more challenges, and the recent financial storms and crises that have swept the world are precisely the traditional economic management and incentive models where people pursue short-term benefits, emphasizing that self-interest and out-of-control entrusted agency mechanism out of control have always erupted. However, this most traditional incentive model has spread from colleges to all corners of society such as businesses, governments, schools, and families, and almost pervades everything from infant education to adult education, from corporate management behavior to government policy formulation. In the book Reshaping the Brain and Reshaping Life, the creation of restriction-induced exercise therapy caused Dr. Tao Bo to find a very interesting phenomenon in the experiment of studying the nervous system of monkeys. When giving the monkey something to eat, cut off the nerve of one hand of the monkey and tie the other hand that can be used flexibly. Whenever the monkey moves it to cut off the hand of the nerve, it will be rewarded and the monkey will not progress. He has to use the shape method to induce the monkey to do the actions he wants. In the book Drive, the author describes a rhesus monkey experiment. Harry Harlow, a psychology professor at the University of Wisconsin, and one of his colleagues found 8 monkeys and conducted a 2-week experiment on learning behavior on one day in 1949. They designed a simple device that required 3 steps to unlock the device: pull out the latch, unlock the hook, and lift the hinged lid. The experimenter closed the monkey in the cage and observed the monkey's reaction. To their surprise, the monkey, without any prompting or encouragement, devotes himself to studying and opening the lid. We are already familiar with 2 behavioral driving forces. One is the biological driving force: humans and other animals eat to quench hunger, drink water to quench thirst, and mate to satisfy sexual desire. The second driving force comes from extrinsic motivation: the subject will be rewarded or punished from the environment when performing certain actions. But in the first case above, the reward did not bring the expected effect. In the second case, the scientist gave no reward, but the monkey was able to study the latch independently. How should we understand the relationship between reward and behavior? In daily life, many parents often use money to lure their children to do housework in order to cultivate their children's practical ability. For example, if you brush the bowl once, you will be paid 50 cents, if you drag it once, you will be given $1. It seems to work well in the short term, but it will be harder than going to the sky if you don't want to give money to let the children work. Why? In The Driving Force, the author gave us a detailed explanation. The author of this book, Daniel Pink, also has a book New Thinking, which has won the title of one of the 50 most influential business thinkers in the world. He proposed in this book, this era does not need better management, but needs the renaissance of self-management. The author refers to the 2 driving forces mentioned above as Driving Force 1.0 and Driving Force 2.0. That is the advent of the driving force 3.0 era in the 21st century. The driving force 3.0 era is coming. With the development of society, unlike the assembly line work of industrial society, society has more and more demands for creative work. And the more creative work, the reward will obliterate the creativity in the work. The author introduced an experiment with a firewood box in the book. For the subjects who were clearly informed of the reward, it took 3 minutes longer to come up with a solution than the control group. The author said in the book that the results of this experiment tell us that rewards narrow people's attention, obscure their broad horizons, and prevent them from seeing new uses of common things. The child's curiosity about various things exists. He will want to try eagerly. For example, many girls will try to do their laundry when they are young. Boys will also try a mop when they see their mother mopping the floor. What we need to do is keep their curiosity. I still remember when I was little, I watched my grandmother knead the dough to make buns. I watched it by myself and wanted to give it a try. It was very interesting to watch the kneading. Fortunately, I tried it later. And the driving force 3.0 is such an internal driving force that takes the process itself as a reward. The behavior inspired by this driving force is spontaneous and does not require any reward. Just like the monkeys in the previous Gunga monkey experiment. Through careful consideration, a series of actions to open the latch is itself a reward. Once the money is given, the intrinsic driving force of this behavior is replaced by a reward. So how should we use the reward method correctly? The author also made a very clear picture for us. Depending on the nature of the task to be completed, different incentive methods are used. Then when you need to call the internal driving force, you need the since-then reward method. 3 elements of driving force 3.0. So what is the driving force behind it? In the book, the author mentions 3 elements of driving force 3.0, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. 1. Autonomy. What do? I decide. As the name implies, self-determination means that you do your own thing. The author mentions 4 aspects of work autonomy in the book, and also gives 8 ways to help children autonomy. We specifically talk about 2 points here. One is to give the child pocket money and let the child do housework, but the 2 should not be confused. It also means giving children pocket money, and at the same time telling them the benefits of pocket money, how to let them decide how to spend it, and teaching them to be responsible for money. For housework, let the children know that the family is built on each other's obligations. My child is over 3 years old and especially likes to do housework. Every time I dragged the floor, he ran over to help. Although I sometimes help, I still encourage him and praise his behavior in a timely manner. Sometimes, he will be very happy to say, "Mom, I helped you again." I will tell him very seriously that mopping is to serve our entire family, not for Mom. He would say thoughtfully, dragging the ground, "My car can also drive." Another point is praise. For children, praise from parents is very important. Therefore, the correct way of praise is very important. The author lists the following methods. Recognize the child's efforts and methods, not talent. Make the recognition concrete. Praise should be done in private. Recognize only when there is a reason. 2. Mastery. Do what you want to do better and better. Hisant Mihai, the discoverer of flow. An experiment was done in the early 1970s. Let experimenters do what they have to do every day without doing any gameplay or non-tool related things. For example, if you like reading very much, then you cannot read. If you like to wash clothes, then you cannot wash. The results of the experiment became apparent the next day. Participants began to have headaches, their behavior became dull, and their mood was bad. At the end of the experiment, Mihai found that after only 2 days of deprivation of flow, participants' emotions deteriorated to a serious degree. The author mentioned in the book that the deep sense of investment required by the driving force 3.0 is a necessity, and we need it to survive. It is the oxygen of our soul. Therefore, Discovering those moments that put you in a state of flow will make you invest more in specialization activities, and forget any rewards, because these activities are themselves rewards. The author in the book also introduces us to 9 ways to improve the organization. Let us learn how to stimulate the internal driving force of employees in the enterprise. 3. Purpose. To surpass one's own desire. Maslow's 5 levels of needs. The highest level is the need for self-realization. After having the ability of autonomy and specialization, the goal becomes the direction that guides us. The basic condition for a good life is not just to make more money, but after satisfying the basic conditions, in the process of self-realization, profit is a byproduct of achievements. Scientists have found through follow-up interviews with students who have just graduated from university that those who have self-realization goals and feel that they are achieving their goals have higher self-satisfaction and subjective well-being than their anxiety when they were in college, and the level of depression is also quite low. But those who hold interest goals, the results shown are much more complicated. People who are simply accumulating wealth and admiring them have no higher self-satisfaction than students. We found that having money does not make you happier. Inspiring employees has always been a difficulty in front of many professional managers. According to McKinsey & Company's forecast, only 30% of job growth in the United States now comes from speculative work, and the remaining 70% comes from exploratory work. One of the important reasons is that uniform and repetitive mechanical labor can be outsourced or automated, but non-predictive work involving art, emotion, and other content cannot. The Harvard Business School's research also found that external rewards and penalties are very suitable for speculative work, but may be destructive for exploratory work. To solve new problems or create new things, it depends to a large extent on the third driving force. Researchers call it the principle of intrinsic motivation for creativity. Intrinsic motivation helps creativity, and the core credo of the second driving force may actually be harmful to exploratory work that relies on the right brain, and this type of work is precisely modern. The economy depends on it. However, whether it is in the fields of psychology, behavioral science, or social science, and various long-term empirical research conclusions, we are showing us such a contradictory scene. Science is to the left, and enterprises are to the right. Nowadays, more and more enterprises have begun to shift from emphasizing obedience based on management control behavior to a more open and self-employed self-management model, from emphasizing external incentives to inspiring employees to self-management and self-driven new management mode transformation, although it has not yet formed the mainstream, but it is powerful. Obviously, the era of change has arrived, and more corporate excellence practices have repeatedly verified the inevitable trend of this change. Whether it is Google or Apple, whether it is IBM or Microsoft, has already been practicing and welcoming the arrival of this new era. The secret to improving performance and enthusiasm for individuals and organizations today is not our biological driving force, nor our second driving force for pursuing rewards and avoiding punishment, but our third driving force, which is what we want. The deep desire to lead our lives, extend our abilities, and make life more meaningful. In this era of Driving Force 3.0, the old way of rewarding and punishing people's enthusiasm is no longer effective. We must upgrade our driving system to the 3.0 era. The core of this new system is not carrots and sticks, but autonomy, mastery and purpose. Rewards can only bring short-term bursts, but their effects will gradually disappear. Even worse, it reduces the long-term enthusiasm that people need to continue this work. The autonomy, mastery, and purpose provide the endless and renewable green energy for the driving force of our individual, organization and team development. This era does not require the so-called better management, but the revival of self-management. How can we inspire people to do creative work? This is back again. Daniel Pink described 3 basic elements that motivate people to do creative work in the book Drive. 1. Work autonomy, to provide people with autonomy, so that they can freely and flexibly choose when, where, and how to complete their work. Pink mentions a software company called Medius, which has established a results-only work environment. People come and go as they please. As a result, people's productivity has increased and pressure has dropped. 2. The skill level matches the task difficulty. Mastery people hope to do better, they will continue to strive to improve their skill level. Only the challenges that match the ability can make people grow and improve their inner working motivation. If the task is too difficult or too simple compared to people's current technical level, they cannot grow. 3. A clear sense of purpose and a sense of consciousness. Purpose people aspire to be part of a value community that transcends themselves, hoping to give meaning to work. If the leader can establish a culture and work environment with the above 3 elements at the same time, it will cultivate a more motivated team. What should managers do? First, managers must know what our mission is. If you only have money, then you are the only way to motivate your subordinates. The only way is to rely on money, but money has proved to be not the most important motivating factor. The operating system Linux was designed by a group of unpaid programmers and is now one of the best operating systems in the world. The founders of Facebook did not create Facebook for money, and are now one of the most influential companies and products in the world. If your mission is to create sustainable prosperity and satisfy employees, customers, and shareholders, then congratulations on your successful start. Second, recruit the right employees to do the right things. Recruit technically capable employees who are willing to work with you to create a better vision based on their responsibilities to do the right thing. If the recruited people themselves are confused, have no ideas, no life goals, no plans, people who have no interest in the company and work, or insufficient abilities, recruiting will only increase labor costs and affect the entire team. Third, classify positions. If the position requires mechanized labor, then use the carrot and stick rule to incentivize, formulate various processes and standards, and make an incentive policy of if you are like this, then it will be like that. But make sure 1. To explain the necessity of this work, 2. To admit that this work is boring and tasteless, 3. To allow him to complete the task in his own way within the allowed range. On the contrary, if this work is not mechanized labor, it needs to be active, and creative people cannot set such incentive policies. Fourth, the remuneration system should be relatively fair and reasonable, and above average. The fairness here includes 2 aspects, external fairness and internal fairness. External fairness means that the remuneration is similar or the same level among peers. Internal fairness means that the remuneration among colleagues should be appropriate when compared. Otherwise, there will be employee resistance, not to mention motivation. Above average means that the remuneration given not only meets basic needs but is higher than the same industry in the market, which can boost morale, motivate employees, and reduce the loss of talent. Fifth, provide a good team atmosphere. Praise employees for their positive behaviors, in addition to money and material, relate to employees' needs and emotions, and communicate frequently to ensure that your vision and employees have always been. Sixth, give employees greater autonomy. I think this is the essence of the whole book, but I also think it is the most difficult to do at present. Take the automobile industry as an example. Automobile manufacturers have an assessment of dealers that is customer satisfaction. Generally speaking, there are dozens or even dozens of indicators to check whether customers are satisfied. A sample of telephone visits will be conducted. If the satisfaction is high, the dealer will be rewarded. If the satisfaction is low, the dealer will have a certain economic penalty. Therefore, all dealers put customer satisfaction in the first place. They put these dozens or more 10 indicators are printed out to memorize, silently write to the sales consultant, and even record when they pick up the customer to supervise whether the sales consultant does it. In this way, the sales consultant becomes very mechanized, and the customers are different, and they are all kaleidoscopic. It is hard to consider every customer's satisfaction based on indicators. I even heard such a joke. A customer entered a brand car dealership and wanted to buy a car, just entered the door and the cell stopped him and took out the customer satisfaction index and read it aloud. After that, he asked, "Sir, what do you need?" This is no longer centered on customer satisfaction but on whether the sales completion system is the core. How active and proactive is such sales? Give employees more autonomy, put aside all the restrictions and let them actively serve customers to satisfy customers. As an old saying goes, management cannot solve problems, management itself is a problem. 7th, leaders should strive for perfection, pay attention to details, and continue to improve, and constantly push employees forward. By reading this book, we can systematically understand the 3 types of driving force, and how to stimulate our own internal driving force in the future life, not to live and live. At the end of each chapter, the author lists detailed methods. Teach us how to excite ourselves, how to stimulate children's internal drive, and how companies can stimulate employees' internal drive. In a modern society where the material is extremely rich, we need a richer spiritual life. Therefore, we need to use the correct method to motivate everyone to exert greater creativity. After having autonomy, specialization, and correct goals, complete self-realization and live up to this life. Okay. Here is our sharing for today. If you like this book, you may click on the link below to purchase. At the same time, you are welcome to click, subscribe, follow, share and forward our channel. Your support is our driving force. See you next time.